When a man who controls billions loses control of his own home, you know something's shifted. Jun hadn't heard his daughter speak in 1,095 days, but tonight she's laughing in the arms of a stranger wearing yellow gloves and a red uniform. He's ready to end this, fire her, erase her, until she turns around and says 5 words that crack his world wide open. "Your wife knew my sister." Mariam wasn't supposed to know that name. She wasn't supposed to be in that kitchen, and she definitely wasn't supposed to have the one thing Jun's been hunting for 3 years, the key to what really happened the night Min-hee disappeared. But here's what Jun doesn't know yet. Mariam isn't just here to clean his house. She's here to dismantle his entire life, and the woman he's about to trust with his daughter's silence? She's been listening to his secrets through the walls for weeks. Before we dive into this web of lies, betrayal, and forbidden attraction, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell me in the comments, are you team trust her or team run? Drop your city too. Let's see where my storytellers are watching from tonight. Rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Project Phoenix headquarters on the 47th floor. Jun stood at the edge of his glass desk, signing the acquisition papers that would erase his competitor's legacy with a single stroke. At 35, this sharp-jawed Korean robotics founder had built an empire from algorithms and ambition, with neural interfaces that stretched from Seoul to Silicon Valley. But wealth couldn't buy back what he'd lost. 3 years. Why, 3 years since Min-hee walked out of their penthouse and never came back. No body, no answers. Just a phone call from the police about an ongoing investigation that went cold within weeks. The woman who used to fill their white marble home with music and warmth had vanished like smoke, leaving behind only questions Jun couldn't solve with code. His empire became his cage. Board meetings replaced bedtime stories. Contracts replaced conversations. And in the center of it all was Suri, his 6-year-old daughter who hadn't spoken a single word since the night her mother disappeared. Jun had hired 24 nannies in 3 years, 24 educated, patient, award-winning caregivers. All of them quit within weeks, defeated by a child who communicated only through folded paper. "Mr. Jun, your daughter isn't just selective," the last one had said, packing her bags. "She's built a fortress, and I don't have the key." That's when Mrs. Kang, his elderly housekeeper, had called him at the office with desperation in her voice. "I can't do this alone anymore. I hired someone to help with the house. Her name is Mariam. She starts today." Jun had said yes without thinking. He was about to discover that was his first mistake, his second mistake. Coming home early. Jun's finger hovered over the emergency contact on his phone. One call and security would drag this woman out of his home. One call and his life would return to the predictable silence he'd built like armor around his chest. But his daughter was speaking. After 1,095 days of silence, Suri's voice, small and clear, had shattered the tomb he'd been living in. "Who are you?" Jun's question came out jagged, dangerous. Mariam turned slowly, her movements deliberate as a chess piece sliding across a board. Those yellow gloves should have looked ridiculous against her deep brown skin, but somehow they made her look untouchable, in control. The red uniform with its crisp white collar framed her face. High cheekbones, full lips set in a line that suggested she'd tasted disappointment before and survived it. "I'm the woman who just gave your daughter her voice back." No deference, no apology. Her accent carried traces of something coastal, American, but layered with something older, richer. "Your welcome would be nice, Mr. Jun." His jaw clenched. "You changed my security codes." "I improved your security." She pulled off one glove, finger by finger, revealing elegant hands with short, unpractical nails. "Your old code was based on February 14th, 1987, Min-hee's supposed birthday. Except that's not real, is it?" The floor tilted beneath Jun's feet. "Min-hee was born January 29th, 1987. Lunar calendar. You created a fake date for public records to protect her from her family's enemies in Seoul." Mariam's dark eyes held his, unflinching. "Only 3 people knew that truth." "4, Jun whispered, his voice cracking like ice under pressure. "You just made it 4. 5, actually." Mariam's expression shifted, something ancient and grieving moving behind her eyes. "Min-hee knew, and so did my sister." Before June could process that bomb, Suri appeared between them like a ghost, her small feet silent on the marble. She was holding something, paper folded with surgical precision, not the chaotic folds of a child, but something methodical, calculated. Suri walked past June without acknowledgement, a rejection that carved into his ribs, and placed the paper in Mariam's waiting palm. Mariam unfolded it with reverent slowness. June's breath stopped. It wasn't origami art, it was a floor plan, precise, professional, labeled in handwriting that made June's vision blur. Min-hee's handwriting, in the corner, written in his dead wife's hand, "Trust her, she's the key." The paper trembled in Mariam's fingers, the first crack in her armor. "Your daughter has been drawing your wife's prison for 3 years, Mr. June, and you called it art therapy." June's knees nearly buckled. "That's not possible. Suri was only 3 when children remember everything." Mariam cut him off, her voice suddenly fierce, protective, especially trauma, and especially secrets their mothers whisper before they're taken. She moved closer, close enough that Jun could smell something unexpected beneath the lemon cleaning solution, cardamom and vanilla, warm and deliberate. Close enough to see the small scar cutting through her left eyebrow, a story he'd never hear. "The question isn't who I am, Mr. Jun." Her voice dropped to a whisper that felt like a blade pressed to his throat. "The question is, are you brave enough to hear the truth? Because once I tell you, your empire, your grief, your carefully controlled life, it all becomes a weapon, and weapons cut both ways." June looked at his daughter, at Mariam, at the floor plan of his own research facility drawn in his dead wife's hand. "Tell me everything," he breathed. Mariam's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. "Lock the doors first. They're already watching." June's hands shook as he engaged the manual locks, the backup system even his security team didn't control. The penthouse sealed itself with a series of mechanical clicks that sounded like a coffin closing. "Sit," Mariam commanded, gesturing to the kitchen island. "This is my home." "Was your home?" She pulled out a chair and waited, those dark eyes daring him to challenge her. "Now it's a crime scene. So sit down and let me show you what you've been too blind to see." June sat. Not because she told him to, but because his legs were threatening to give out. Mariam reached into her uniform pocket and pulled out more folded papers, dozens of them, cascading onto the white marble like evidence at a trial. Suri climbed onto the chair beside him, her small hand reaching for his. He grasped it like a lifeline. "I've been collecting these since I started working here 2 weeks ago," Mariam said, beginning to unfold each piece with surgical precision. "At first, I thought they were random. Beautiful, but random. Then I realized Suri only makes these shapes when she's afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of forgetting." Mariam laid the papers out in a grid pattern, each one a fragment of something larger. Min-hee taught her a game before she disappeared. She called it Remember the House. She'd make Suri memorize floor plans, room layouts, security systems. She made it fun, a puzzle for a 3-year-old. June's throat constricted. Why would she do that? Because your wife knew she was about to be taken. Mariam's voice was clinical, but her jaw trembled. And she needed Suri to remember where. The papers, when assembled, formed a complete schematic of the Project Phoenix facility. But it wasn't the public layout, the one given to investors and government regulators. This was the real structure, including rooms that didn't exist on official blueprints, sub-basements, hidden corridors, a medical wing that wasn't supposed to be there, and in the center, a single room marked with a hand-drawn red star. "That's where they're keeping her," Mariam said quietly. "Room B7. The medical containment unit that doesn't officially exist." June's vision swam. "Min-hee is alive?" "She was 3 months ago." Mariam pulled out her phone, custom hardware, military-grade encryption, and swiped to a file. "My contact inside the facility sent this." The photo was grainy, taken through what looked like a ventilation grate, but Jun would recognize that face anywhere. Min-hee. Latch unconscious, intubated. Her skin pale as paper, her hair longer than he remembered, her body connected to machines that hummed with malevolent purpose. "They're keeping her in a medically induced coma," Mariam explained, her voice finally cracking with emotion. "She's the only one who memorized the final encryption key for the stolen algorithm. They need her brain functioning, but her consciousness locked away. If they kill her, the key dies. If they wake her, she'll expose them." Jun couldn't breathe. 3 years. 3 years of grief, of assuming his wife was dead, of watching his daughter retreat into silence. Who's they? The question came out feral, barely human. Mariam's eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw not just intelligence but rage, pure, distilled fury that matched his own. Your board of directors, your CFO, your head of security, and the CEO of Neuraltech, the company you've been trying to acquire. She pulled up another file. Bank transfers, encrypted emails, audio recordings. They didn't just steal your research, Mr. Jun. They bought your people, turned them into weapons against you. Jun's hands curled into fists. Names. I want names. Oh, you'll get names. Mariam leaned forward, so close he could see flecks of gold in her dark irises, could feel the heat radiating from her skin. But first, you need to understand something. I didn't come here to help you grieve. I came here to help you destroy them. Every single one. The air between them crackled with something dangerous, not just attraction, though that was there, unwelcome and electric. This was something darker. A shared hunger for vengeance that felt like a pact written in blood. Why? Jun's voice was raw. Why risk this for my wife? Mariam's smile was broken glass. Because they didn't just take Min-hee, they took my sister first, Amara. She was the original whistleblower. She found the stolen code and tried to expose it. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They made her disappear so thoroughly, it's like she never existed. No body, no investigation, just gone. And you think, I know Min-hee found out what happened to Amara. I know they worked together to gather evidence, and I know that when Min-hee disappeared, it was because she got too close to the truth. Mariam's hand moved across the table, stopping inches from his. Your wife was my partner, Mr. Jun, my friend, and I don't leave friends in cages. Jun looked down at their hands, not touching, but the space between them vibrating with intention. Mariam's skin was darker than his, her fingers longer, her nails painted a deep burgundy that looked like dried blood in the kitchen's cold light. What do you need from me? He asked. Everything. Mariam's eyes burned into his. Your access codes, your trust, your willingness to burn your entire world down if that's what it takes to save her. Jun thought about his empire, his reputation, the carefully constructed life he'd built from algorithms and ambition. Then he thought about Min-hee in that room, trapped between life and death. Where do we start? Mariam's smile was beautiful and terrifying. We start by making them think they've already won. The rain turned apocalyptic around midnight. The sheets of water hammering the windows like they wanted to break through. The penthouse lights flickered once, twice, then settled into emergency mode. Cold blue LEDs that turned Mariam's red uniform purple and cast shadows that moved like living things. Suri had fallen asleep on the couch, curled around one of her origami creations. Jun watched his daughter's chest rise and fall, each breath a small miracle he'd stopped noticing until tonight. She sleeps better now, Mariam said from the kitchen doorway, her voice soft in a way he hadn't heard before. Before I came, Mrs. Kang said she'd wake up screaming every night at 2:47 a.m. Exactly 2:47, like clockwork. Jun's stomach dropped. That's the time Min-hee's car was found abandoned. I know. Mariam moved into the room, silent as smoke despite her practical shoes. The trauma lives in the body, Mr. Jun, in the cells, in the precise moment when the world broke. She sat on the opposite end of the couch, careful not to disturb Suri, but close enough that Jun could see the exhaustion etched around her eyes. For the first time since she'd walked into his home, she looked human, breakable. Tell me about your sister, Jun said quietly. Mariam's expression shuddered. Why? Because you know everything about my pain. It seems fair. She was silent for so long, Jun thought she wouldn't answer. Then, Amara was brilliant. Not just smart, brilliant. MIT graduate at 19, PhD in computational linguistics by 22. She could have worked anywhere, but she chose Neuraltech because they promised her she could change the world. Mariam's voice cracked. She was 25 when she found the stolen code buried in their neural interface patents. She came to me, I was working in intelligence analysis then, and asked me what to do. I told her to document everything and go through proper channels. A bitter laugh. Proper channels. Like those words mean anything when the system is rigged. Jun understood that laugh. He'd made it himself too many times. She disappeared 3 weeks later, went to work one morning and never came home. No body, no witnesses. The police called it a voluntary disappearance. Said she'd been acting erratic, talking about conspiracies, showing signs of paranoia. Mariam's hands clenched into fists. They gaslit her memory, made her sound crazy so no one would investigate. But you didn't stop looking. I couldn't. Mariam's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She was my sister, my best friend. The person who taught me that being smart wasn't something to hide, that being a black woman in tech meant we had to be twice as brilliant and half as loud to survive. She wiped her eyes roughly. So no, I didn't stop. I burned my career investigating, lost my security clearance, got blacklisted from government work, and then I found Min-hee. Jun leaned forward, drawn by the gravity of her story. How? Dark web forum for corporate whistleblowers. Min-hee posted under an encrypted handle, looking for information about disappearances linked to neural interface research. I reached out. We met in person. She was careful, paranoid, brilliant. She showed me what she'd found. The same stolen code Amara had discovered, but now inside Project Phoenix. Mariam's voice turned sharp. Your wife didn't think you were involved, Mr. Jun. But she couldn't prove it. She didn't know who in your company had planted the code or who was selling your research to neural tech, so she kept digging, and I helped her. The rain hammered harder, the sound like accusations. We were days away from having everything we needed, Mariam continued, her voice breaking. Proof of the theft, proof of the conspiracy, names, dates, bank transfers, communications, everything. Min-hee was going to bring it to you first, give you a chance to clean your house before going public. What happened? She went to the Phoenix facility to download the final piece of evidence from a secure terminal. She never came home. Mariam's tears fell freely now, tracking down her cheeks like evidence of something broken inside. I waited 3 days. When the news reported her car found abandoned, I knew. They'd taken her just like they'd taken Amara, but this time there was Suri, a witness, a child who'd memorized everything her mother taught her. Jun's hand moved across the couch cushion, stopping just short of touching Mariam's. Why didn't you come forward immediately? Because I'm not stupid. Fire flashed in her eyes. I was already on their radar because of Amara. If I'd revealed myself, they would have killed me and Suri both. So I disappeared, changed my identity, spent 3 years tracking every thread, building my case, waiting for the right moment to get close to Suri. The governess position. Mrs. Kang was overwhelmed. Easy to approach with an offer to help. Easier to convince her I was qualified when I actually am qualified. I have degrees in linguistics and child psychology. They're real, just under a different name. Mariam's laugh was hollow. I became exactly what no one looks twice at. Domestic help, invisible, beneath notice, the perfect cover. Jun's chest ached with something too complex to name. You've been hunting them for 3 years. I've been surviving for 3 years, Mariam corrected. Hunting requires power. I had none. But now? She looked at him, and the intensity in her gaze felt like falling into dark water. Now I have you, your access, your resources, your rage. The air between them charged with electricity that had nothing to do with the storm. This is dangerous, Jun said, though he didn't know if he meant the plan or the way his body was leaning toward hers, pulled by a gravity he didn't understand. Everything worth doing is dangerous. Mariam didn't move away. The question is whether you're willing to risk everything for the truth, for her, for... The lights went out completely, not a flicker, total, absolute darkness. Jun's hand found Mariam's in the blackness, his fingers wrapping around hers on instinct. Her skin was warm, her pulse racing beneath his thumb. They're here, she breathed against his ear, suddenly close enough that he could feel her words on his skin. The surveillance footage you pulled, they know we know. A sound in the hallway, footsteps, professional, confident. Mariam's grip tightened. Whatever happens, protect Suri. Promise me. What are you going to do? Her laugh was soft, lethal. Or something they won't expect from a governess. Jun's military training, the 2 years of mandatory service he rarely thought about, flooded back in the darkness. Mariam moved like water beside him, her breathing controlled, her body coiled with purpose. She wasn't just smart, she was trained. "How many?" Jun whispered. "3 in the hallway, 2 more in the elevator as backup." Mariam's voice was clinical, detached. "Professional contractors, not amateurs. They'll try to make this look like a home invasion gone wrong." Jun's blood turned to ice. "Suri is safest asleep. The moment she wakes up, she becomes a liability they'll eliminate." Mariam's hand released his, and he heard the soft rustle of fabric. "They need you to think you can negotiate. That's their weakness." "What's the plan?" "You play the terrified billionaire. I play the servant who isn't worth noticing." A pause. "When I move, don't hesitate. Just follow." The penthouse door's lock mechanism beeped. Override code entered. Jun's security system turned against him by someone with administrator access. The door opened. 3 figures in black tactical gear stepped inside, their movements precise. Night vision goggles turned them into insects, alien and efficient. The leader spoke in Mandarin, his accent Northern Chinese. "Mr. Jun, we're here on behalf of your board of directors. There's been a security breach. We need you to come with us." Jun stood slowly, hands visible, playing the role Mariam had given him. "What breach?" "The unauthorized access to Phoenix files. The data transfer from your home server." The man's voice was almost apologetic. "It's very serious, sir. See, we need to secure you immediately." Jun's mind raced. They didn't know about the origami maps, didn't know about Mariam's true identity. They thought this was just Jun discovering something on his own. That was an advantage. "I want to call my lawyer," Jun said, voice shaking just enough to sell fear. "Of course, after we've secured the premises." The leader gestured to his team. "Check the child's room. Make sure she's safe." That's when Mariam moved. She'd been standing in the shadows near the kitchen, so still they'd dismissed her as furniture. But when the man moved toward Suri's room, Mariam stepped into the emergency lighting's blue glow, and she began to sing. The melody stopped all 3 men in their tracks. It was haunting, beautiful. He sung in Korean with a purity that seemed impossible from someone who'd been silent moments before. But Jun's heart shattered because he recognized it. The lullaby. The song Min-hee had been composing. The melody that shouldn't exist. Suri woke up, not with fear, but with wonder. She sat up on the couch and joined her voice to Mariam's, the 2 of them singing in perfect harmony, each note precise and deliberate. The leader ripped off his night vision goggles, staring at them. "What the hell?" Jun saw it then. Confusion. The tactical breakdown of a professional operator confronted with something outside mission parameters. Mariam had weaponized beauty, turned art into warfare, and in that moment of confusion, Mariam struck. She moved like smoke, closing the distance to the nearest operative in 3 silent steps. Her hand found his nerve cluster, and he dropped without a sound. The second man turned, raising his weapon, but Mariam was already there, redirecting the barrel, using his momentum to slam him into the wall. Jun didn't hesitate. He'd been useless for 3 years, paralyzed by grief. But now his wife was alive, his daughter was singing, and a woman who'd sacrificed everything was fighting for his family. He tackled the leader, muscle memory taking over. They went down hard, the man's gun skittering across marble. They fought in silence except for grunts and the sick sound of flesh hitting flesh. Jun was stronger, but the operative was faster, trained. A knife appeared in his hand, a yellow blur. Mariam's gloved hand caught the man's wrist, twisted, and the knife dropped. "You're going to answer some questions," she said calmly, as if she hadn't just disabled 2 armed men in under 30 seconds. "Starting with who gave you the override codes." The man spat blood. "You're dead, all of you." "Maybe." Mariam's smile was serene. "But you're bleeding out from the radial artery I just severed unless you start talking. So who dies first is really up to you." Jun looked at her, this woman who'd been wiping his counters hours ago, and realized he'd never been more attracted to anyone in his life. It was wrong, inappropriate. His wife was alive somewhere, trapped and helpless, but Mariam wasn't helpless. She was a knife disguised as a caregiver, and she was magnificent. The operative's face paled as blood pooled beneath his arm. "David," he gasped. "David Kang, your CFO. He's running the whole operation." Jun's world tilted. David, his mentor, his friend. the man who'd helped him build Project Phoenix from nothing. "Where's Min-hee?" Mariam demanded, pressing her thumb into the wound. "Where exactly in the facility?" "Sub-basement 3, medical wing, room," he choked, "room B7. Mariam looked at June, and in her eyes he saw the same thing he felt, triumph and terror. They'd found her, finally. But now came the hard part, getting her out alive. Suri's voice cut through the tension, clear and precise. "The butterfly map knows the way. Mommy showed me. She said when the bad men came, I should fold the butterfly for the brave lady." She held up an origami shape, not a bird, not a crane, a butterfly. And when Mariam unfolded it, tears streaming down her face, they saw what Min-hee had hidden inside, a complete blueprint of the facility's ventilation system, by hand-drawn in microscopic detail, the only route in that security wouldn't monitor. "She knew," Mariam whispered. "Min-hee knew we'd need this. She knew we'd figure it out." June looked at his daughter, his silent, brilliant daughter who'd been guarding her mother's secrets for 3 years. He looked at Mariam, fierce and broken and perfect. He looked at the fallen operatives and the butterfly map and the storm raging outside. "Then let's go get her," he said. Mariam's smile could have cut diamonds. Finally, a man who understands the assignment. So, family, we're 5 chapters deep and the storm's just beginning. June's about to walk into hell itself to save the woman he thought he'd lost. Mariam's done playing the invisible servant. And Suri? That little girl's been the mastermind this whole time. But here's what I need from you. Do you think David is the real villain, or is there someone pulling his strings? Drop your theory in the comments. I love when y'all connect dots I haven't shown yet. And while you're down there, tell me what city you're watching from. I'm building a map of where my dark romance family lives, and I want to see how global we really are. If this chapter had your heart racing, if that moment when Mariam took down trained killers while singing a lullaby gave you chills, hit that subscribe button. Because what comes next is where things get really dangerous, the kind of dangerous that changes people forever. Like, if you're Team Mariam. Comment if you're Team Get Min-hee now, and subscribe if you're Team I Need to Know What Happens Next. Let's get it, family. June secured the unconscious operatives in his wine cellar, cable-tied and gagged. They'd wake up in hours with headaches and explanations to make. By then, this would all be over, one way or another. Mariam was in the kitchen when he returned, her red uniform discarded for tactical black clothing she'd pulled from God knows where. The transformation was complete. The governess was gone, replaced by something feral and focused. She'd tied her hair back tight, revealing the elegant column of her neck, the sharp line of her jaw. Jun couldn't stop staring. "We leave in 20 minutes, she said without looking up from the laptop where she was mapping infiltration routes. "Suri stays with Mrs. Kang at the safe house I arranged last week." "You've been planning this. Since the day I walked through your door." Mariam's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Did you think I came here to dust furniture?" The scent hit him then, sudden and devastating. Cinnamon, gochugaru, something earthy and warm that shouldn't exist in his sterile kitchen. He turned to see a pot simmering on the stove. "What is that?" "Insurance." Mariam moved to the stove, stirring the deep red sauce with practiced ease. "Your wife taught me this recipe the week before she disappeared. Jollof rice base with Korean pepper paste, fermented soybean, sesame oil. She said it was the only thing that made her feel like herself, half Korean, half the woman who'd chosen to stand beside you." June's throat closed. "Why are you making it now?" "Because scent is the strongest trigger for memory." Mariam turned, her dark eyes burning into his. "Min-hee's been in a coma for 3 years. If we're going to wake her up, we need something that reaches past the drugs, past the trauma. We need something that tells her brain, you're safe, you're home, you're loved." She ladled the sauce into a sealed container, her movements reverent. "And because if this goes wrong, if we don't make it out, I want the last thing I smell to be the meal my best friend taught me to make, the one that tastes like hope." June moved closer, drawn by gravity he couldn't name. "You really loved her." "I love her." Mariam's correction was sharp. Present tense. "No, she's not dead yet." The air between them crackled with something dangerous, grief and fury and attraction so wrong it felt like sin. June's hand moved of its own accord, his fingers brushing the curve of Mariam's cheek. She didn't pull away. "When this is over," he started. "Don't." Her voice cracked. "Don't make promises in the before. Only the after matters." She pulled back, breaking the spell. "Get changed. We have a wife to save." The word wife landed like a slap, exactly as she'd intended. The Phoenix facility rose from the Manhattan darkness like a monument to hubris. 53 floors of glass and steel, June's name etched in chrome above the entrance. He'd built this, funded it, believed in it, and somewhere in its belly they'd buried his wife alive. As Mariam navigated them through the service entrance using credentials that shouldn't exist. "Your head of security has terrible password hygiene," she murmured. "Birthday, wife's name, dog's name, textbook amateur." They descended into the sub-basements, the air growing colder with each level. Mariam had changed the security footage to loop. They were ghosts in their own building. But Jun knew the real defenses weren't digital. There, Mariam pointed to a sealed door marked mechanical. Ventilation access. According to Suri's butterfly map, this shaft runs directly above the medical wing. Jun pulled the door open. The shaft was narrow, barely wide enough for one person, and the drop looked infinite. "I'll go first," Mariam said. "The hell you will." "I'm trained for this." She met his eyes. "You're trained to build empires, not infiltrate them. Trust me." That word again. Trust. June grabbed her wrist before she could move. "What aren't you telling me?" Mariam's expression flickered, something fast and guilty crossing her face. "What makes you think?" "Because you've been 3 steps ahead this entire time. Because you knew exactly how to fight those operatives. Because you have military-grade equipment in my penthouse." June's grip tightened. "Who are you really?" She could have lied. Should have lied. Instead, she smiled, sharp and sad. "I told you my sister was a coder. That wasn't the whole truth. Amara was NSA, deep cover in corporate espionage, and I wasn't just intelligence analysis, Jun. I was her handler." The revelation hit like a train. When she disappeared, I went rogue, used every resource I had, legal and otherwise, to find her. That's how I found Min-hee. That's how I knew about the conspiracy. Mariam's eyes glistened. "And that's how I know what we're about to walk into isn't a medical wing. It's a black site, illegal, unsanctioned, and if we're caught, we don't exist." June should have been terrified. Instead, he pulled her closer. "Then we don't get caught." Their faces were inches apart, breath mingling in the cold air. June could see the exhaustion etched around her eyes, the small scar bisecting her eyebrow, the way her pulse hammered in her throat. "After," she whispered. "Ask me anything after." She kissed him. Hard, desperate, a kiss that tasted like goodbye and gasoline, like every terrible decision wrapped in skin and heat. June's hands found her waist, pulling her against him, and for 5 seconds, 5 perfect, damning seconds, he forgot about his comatose wife and 3 years of grief. Mariam broke away first, her breathing ragged. That was a mistake. Probably. It can't happen again. Definitely not. They stared at each other, the lie hanging between them like smoke. "Let's go save your wife," Mariam said. The ventilation shaft led to hell. Jun dropped into the medical wing behind Mariam, his hands scraped raw from the metal climb. The air down here smelled wrong, antiseptic and decay, the scent of bodies kept alive against nature's will. Room B7 was at the end of a corridor lit by emergency lighting. No guards, no cameras, too easy. "It's a trap," Jun whispered. "Of course it's a trap." Mariam's voice was ice. "But they don't know we know it's a trap. So we spring it anyway and improvise." She pulled out a device that looked like a phone but hummed with electromagnetic energy. "Signal jammer. 30-second window before their systems detect it. That's how long we have." June's heart was a drum against his ribs. 3 years. 3 years of believing Min-hee was dead, and now he was 30 seconds from seeing her face. Mariam activated the jammer. The locks clicked open. They pushed through the door, and June's world ended. Min-hee was there. Alive. Exactly as the photo had shown, intubated, monitored, her skin pale as paper, her hair longer than he remembered. Machines breathed for her, fed her, kept her suspended between life and death. But that wasn't what destroyed him. It was the man standing beside her bed. David Kang. his CFO, his mentor, his friend. Except David wasn't surprised to see them. He was smiling. "Right on time," David said pleasantly. "I told them you'd bring the girl, the intelligence analyst who's been a thorn in our side for years. Hello, Mariam. Or should I say, Agent Harrison?" Mariam's face went blank. How did I know your real name, your real identity?" David laughed. "Because I'm the one who had your sister killed, sweetheart, and I've been waiting 3 years for you to walk into this room so I could finish the job." The door slammed shut behind them. Armed guards flooded in. Not 3 this time. 10, 20. Jun lunged for David, but Mariam grabbed him, her grip iron strong. "Don't," she hissed. "That's what he wants." David circled them like a shark. "You're wondering how this ends. Let me paint the picture. Jun, grief-stricken widower. Min-hee finally discovers his wife is alive, but the shock is too much. He attacks the medical staff, forces them to wake her prematurely. The sudden withdrawal from sedation kills her instantly. Tragic. And in the chaos, his unstable governess, who turns out to be a rogue federal agent, dies trying to protect him. "You won't get away with this," Jun growled. "I already have." David gestured to Min-hee's comatose form. "Your wife isn't the hostage, Jun. You are. Every algorithm you've built, every patent you've filed, every piece of genius locked in that brilliant brain, it all belongs to me now. Because if you don't sign over Project Phoenix, I pull the plug, and Min-hee dies for real." Mariam's hand slipped into Jun's, squeezing once, a signal. "There's just one problem with your plan," she said calmly. What's that?" "You're assuming we came here to negotiate." Mariam smiled. "We didn't. We came here to burn it all down." She pulled something from her pocket, the sealed container of Jollof bibimbap sauce, and threw it directly into Min-hee's IV line. The machines screamed, chaos erupted, the medical monitors went haywire as the sauce, whatever Mariam had actually put in that container, flooded Min-hee's system. Alarms shrieked, guards rushed forward, David screamed orders, but Jun saw it. Min-hee's fingers twitched. "What did you do?" David roared at Mariam. "Naloxone mixed with adrenaline, wrapped in a delivery system your sensors read as food." Mariam's voice was pure venom. "Your illegal black site doesn't have the antidotes for a rapid reversal, because you're not supposed to be keeping people in medically induced comas in the first place. Which means in about 30 seconds, Min-hee wakes up. And when she does, she talks." David went pale. "Kill them! Kill them now!" The guards raised their weapons and Min-hee's eyes opened. Not slowly, not confused, sharp, aware, furious. She ripped the intubation tube from her throat with her own hands, the sound wet and terrible. Blood spattered the white sheets, and when she spoke, her voice was ruined gravel, but every word landed like a bullet. "Hello, David? Miss me?" David stumbled backward. "That's impossible. The dosage was calibrated for a woman who wasn't building up tolerance for 3 years. Min-hee sat up, machine still attached, looking like a ghost rising from a grave. "You think I've been unconscious this whole time? I've been awake for 18 months, couldn't move, couldn't speak, but I could hear everything." She turned her gaze to Jun, and his heart shattered at the love and fury in her eyes. "Hey, husband. Sorry I'm late." Then she looked at Mariam. "Hey, sister. Thanks for the rescue." "Sister?" Jun's brain couldn't process. Mariam's smile was broken. "Did I forget to mention? Amara wasn't my biological sister. She was Min-hee's. Different fathers, same mother. We were all family. And David killed one of us." The gun appeared in Mariam's hand, so fast Jun didn't see her draw it. "Now we kill him." David raised his hands. Wait, you don't understand. I'm not the top. I'm just middle management. The real power, the people who ordered this, they're beyond your reach. Kill me and you get nothing but revenge." "Revenge sounds perfect," Min-hee rasped. "Or," David's eyes gleamed with desperate cunning, "or I give you everything, names, bank accounts, the entire conspiracy, everyone who profited from stealing Jun's research, everyone who's been running black sites like this one across the country." "In exchange for what?" Jun demanded. "Immunity, witness protection, a new life." Mariam's gun didn't waver. "Why would we possibly—" "Because the person at the top?" David's smile was sick. "It's someone you trust, someone in this room right now, and if you kill me, you'll never know who." 4 people in the room, Jun, Mariam, Min-hee, David. One of them was lying. Jun looked at his wife, Awake after 3 years, bar at Mariam, the woman who'd just kissed him, at David, the mentor who'd betrayed him. Someone in this room wasn't who they claimed to be, and June had no idea who to trust anymore. Min-hee's laugh was broken glass. "Oh, David, you beautiful idiot. Did you really think we didn't know?" She nodded at Mariam. Mariam pulled the trigger. The gunshot echoed like the end of the world, but David didn't fall. The guard behind him did, the one who'd been aiming at June's head. "The conspiracy ends tonight," Min-hee said, pulling IV lines from her arms like she was shedding a skin. "But not here. We need what's in David's head. So here's what happens next. You give us everything, and we give you a 5-minute head start before we hunt you down. Or we kill you now and torture the information from your hard drives." David looked at the three of them, broken, furious, united. "You're insane." "We're family," Mariam corrected. "There's a difference." June stood between his wife and the woman he'd kissed, watching his entire life rearrange itself into a pattern he'd never seen coming. This wasn't the end. It was barely the beginning. So here's where we pause. Family? Because if I tell you what happens next, who David's really working for, what Min-hee discovered while she was asleep, and why Mariam's real mission was never about saving June's wife, you'd never believe me. This story just cracked itself wide open, and part 2 is where everything you think you know gets flipped upside down. But first, I need to know you're ready for it. Drop a comment right now. Do you think Mariam's been playing June this whole time? Or is she really on his side? Because the answer is going to hurt either way. Tell me what city you're watching from. I'm building a map of where this story family lives, and I want to see how far this twisted tale has traveled. If your heart is racing, if that kiss between June and Mariam felt like betrayal and temptation all at once, if you need to know what Min-hee heard during those 18 months of forced consciousness, hit that subscribe button. Because part 2 drops next, and it's going to make these chapters look like a warm-up, like if your team everyone's lying. Comment if your team I need part 2 now. Subscribe if your team this story owns my soul. Trust nobody, family, especially the people you love most. Part 2 is coming. And it's going to burn everything down.